What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 4 of the Journey to Grandmaster series, where I showcase 3 games that I played recently in my journey to becoming a Grandmaster. Let's get into it. First match, I play d4, and opponent plays g6, bishop f4, bishop g7, knight c3, knight c6. I tried to go for a London system, but he played some weird moves here. So I go e4, taking the center because there's no d5. He played c6 to prepare d5. So he plays d5, I play e5, limiting the scope of black's bishop and hindering black's knight development. Bishop to f5 is played because he wants to develop the bishop before he plays e6. Queen to d2, getting ready to castle long and potentially trade off his dark squared bishop. He plays e6, and here the engine recommends h3, so I can try to trap his bishop, for example h3, and I don't know, let's play this, and g4, and if he goes here I can play f3, and he has nowhere to go. So this whole match, the engine recommended h3, but I did not see the ideas that could trap the bishop during this match. But next time, I know that if there are 2 pawns here and a bishop is on f5, for example in a fianchettoed position, I have the option to trap the bishop. But in this game, I did not trap the bishop, so bishop to e2, preparing h4, h5, h6, I play h4, knight to d7, h5, he plays g5, I go to bishop e3 here to prepare g4 and f4, g4 booting out the bishop to h7 and f4 breaking open the king side here. So queen to b6 is played. I thought this move was bad, and I just long castle to protect the b2 pawn. He plays knight to e7, I play g4, bishop h7, f4 is played, and then he castles. Here he should have played g takes f4 and bishop takes f4, but instead he gave me a free pawn by castling, so I play f takes g5, and instead of taking with h takes g5 and then bishop takes g5, he gives me another free pawn with tempo by playing c5, trying to start an attack on the queen side here. So he gives me a free pawn with tempo, g takes h6, bishop to h8, and rook to f1, putting pressure on the f7 pawn, the weak f7 pawn. He plays bishop to e4, attacking my rook. Here the engine recommends h3 or h2, I believe. But I didn't like the bishop having control of the light squares on my king side here, so I traded the knight for the bishop. So bishop takes e4, d takes e4, and bishop g5 is played because I anticipated him. I thought he would go knight to c6 in order to put more pressure on d4. So I played bishop to g5, pinning the knight. There was a better move here. The engine recommended g5 or c3, or rook to d1, king to b1, but I ended up playing bishop g5 pinning. Knight takes e5, which is a blunder, because queen to f4 attacks this pawn on e4, the knight on e5, and the weak f7 pawn. And he goes back to c6, putting more pressure on d5. I meant on d4. Queen takes f7. Now the e6 pawn is weak. He plays knight takes d4, attacking my bishop, and here I hallucinated that the queen wasn't protecting e6, so I could probably like check, pick up the pawn with check. But I should have just played bishop takes e7, bishop takes e7, and queen takes e7. And black shouldn't take here because he's down too much material, and he shouldn't be trading while he's down. But I played bishop to c4, stopping c4 from being played and putting pressure on e6. Rook to d7, which blunders to queen to f6. Here, he was probably preparing a discovered attack, moving the knight back, and my queen would be attacked, so I moved to f6, attacking his h8 rook that is weak. And if his rook moved to g8, let's say, I would have played something like h7, trapping the rook here and possibly promoting to a queen. And if he played a7 here, if I remember, f8 check, and let's say he does something like rook to d8, I can just take, oh wait, no, I can't take the knight. But I can take the knight with the bishop, I think, something like that. And I would have a very good position here. So, okay, so rook to d7, queen to f6, he plays e3 here. This move does nothing, so I leave it alone. And I play queen takes h8, threatening the bishop. He plays e2, knight takes e2, knight takes e2 check, and bishop takes e2, and he resigns here. The next game, I am black here. Starts off with e4, c6, knight to f3, d5, d3. And this, I don't know theory for this, but I have played it before. And d takes e4 seemed like a really good move here, because if takes, queen takes, and the king cannot castle here. And I should be a bit better. He's 2 pieces up in development, let's say knight, oh never mind. He's up in development still, but he can't castle, so he has a slight advantage. But here, d takes e4 is played, knight to g5, putting pressure on e4. Knight to f6, protecting the pawn. Knight to c3, attacking the pawn. Here I play bishop f5. I should have played bishop to g4 here. And he cannot play f3 here, because the pawn just takes. And if pawn takes, this is a weak... He can't castle kingside here, and I have to go back to h5 or somewhere else. So here, bishop f5, not a good move. So knight takes knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4. And here I take the queen with check, and his king cannot castle anymore. So I should be slightly better here. So bishop to g6 is played, because my bishop was attacked. d3 is played, which I didn't see the reason why. I guess he wanted to trade off the light squared bishop. So I played d7 to, let's say if e5 is played, knight takes. And if bishop takes, knight can probably take back, or h takes, letting the rook go free. And the other point of this move I wanted to do was to place my knight on e5 to trade off his light squared bishop, or just kick it out of here. And if this bishop moves, this pawn gets weaker. And he plays bishop to e3 here. And I should have played e5 here, just getting my bishop out and stuff. But I play knight to e5, trying to trade off his light squared bishop. His light squared bishop doesn't have really... Never mind, but he could just go to e2. I was about to say his light squared bishop doesn't have good squares, but bishop e2 is fine for him. But instead he goes f4, which allows me to take his bishop. And he plays c takes d3. And here, I should have played e6 or f5, because when I played rook to d8, it actually allowed f5 to be played. And this is not a good move for me, even if his king is being pinned here. So I'm glad he didn't see f5 here. He plays king to c2, I play e6, stopping f5. Bishop takes a7 here. And here, I play c5 because I had a feeling that my opponent would fall for a trap I calculated, and he did. So I play c5 here. And the trap is if he goes... Okay, so first, the best move here is bishop to b6, because the bishop attacks the rook. Rook to c8, protecting the pawn. But I had a feeling that my opponent would play knight to a4, and because he played knight to a4, I had rook to a8, and now I'm completely winning here, because the bishop is being attacked, and if the bishop moves, he loses a knight. So, bishop takes c5, rook takes a4, and I calculated further in this line that he should take the bishop on f1 and rook takes f8, but he does not. He doesn't want to trade off any more pieces since he's down material, so he goes bishop to e3. I played bishop to e7, developing my bishop, and he plays b3, attacking my rook. I go down to a8, and then h4 is played, trying to start an attack, and I play h5, and he goes for a4, starting something on the king side. I go rook to c8 check, and if he went here, bishop to b6, to b4 I mean, would be a good move for check. And I was like in my head, there's no way he's gonna go to b2, right? Because then I can just force a series of moves that makes my light squared bishop stronger, and my dark squared bishop even more stronger too. And after checks, he plays king to b2, and I play bishop to f6, inducing the move e5 here, so my bishop would be open here, would have a bigger scope, and it's attacking the weak d3 pawn. So bishop to e7, and instead of defending it with a rook, he plays d4, which gives my bishop even more power, and he also blunders rook to c2. He blunders the 7th rank, and I play this move immediately. There are better moves, for example, like e2 check, picking up the bishop. There's something like c6 check, again picking up the bishop and stuff. But I played, because I played extremely fast here, I didn't realize that there was a discovered check. So I play rook takes g2 check, which is still fine. Plays king to c1 because he cannot go to the 7th rank, and his rooks here are pretty weak too. I play castles to get my rook into the attack, and he plays d1 and he surrenders here. I mean, he resigns. Third game. I am black again. e4, c6, d4, d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, and c4, the Panov-Botnik attack of the Caro-Kann defense. One of my favorite variations that I never get to play because my Elo doesn't know theory. So, knight to f6, knight to f3, and I played g6, a fianchetto variation of it. And he plays knight to c3, bishop g7, bishop e2, castles, and here he should have played c takes d, and there's two ways of playing this: knight takes or just castles here. But if you play with the queen, oh wait, never mind, it's a blunder. Well, in some variations here, you could actually take with the queen, but the bishop attacks it and you lose tempo here. Yeah, in the variation I was talking about, and I believe instead of knight to c3, it's actually queen to b6 here, bishop to g7, and then if you take, you usually take with the knight, or you just castle. It also works in the game too. You should have just taken on d5 and the knight or castles. But in this certain line, if c takes d and you take with the queen, bishop to c5 is a move, I believe, yeah. And it's pretty dangerous because you lose the tempo with the queen. Castles, knight to c6, attacking the d4 pawn. This whole game was about attacking this d4 pawn here and preventing it from going forward. So bishop to e3, defending the d4 pawn. Now, I'm a King's Indian player, and there's one variation, I forgot what it was called, where if the bishop is on e3, you play knight to g4 here, and usually like knight to g5 is played. But in this particular position, knight to g4 is a bad move here because c takes d5, attacking the knight, and if you take the bishop, I believe pawn f takes e3, and then here you have to go all the way back to b8. If you play b5, queen to b3 defends the pawn, and your knight is attacked, so you have to go back to b8, which is why knight to g4 is a bad move. The reason why I play knight to g4 is to trade off his dark squared bishop, and if you trade off the dark squared bishops, your fianchetto dark squared bishop is way stronger now, because there's no dark squared bishop to contest this bishop on the dark squares. Bishop to e3, knight to g4, but he misses c takes d5. The knight was protecting d5 here. That is why g4 is a bad move. Queen to d2, knight takes e3. Right now it's equal when I take it because c takes d5 doesn't matter right now. Queen takes e3, he should have played f takes e3, making d4 stronger. But he plays queen takes e3, which leaves this pawn on d4 a bit weak. Now I have two attackers. And I play d takes c4 to induce the knight to take. And my plan here was to have the bishop take e3 and get my knight to f5. My knight to f5, pressuring the queen and the d4 pawn. That was my whole plan here. And let's see, d takes c4. He does not take the c4 pawn back. And he plays rook f to d1. I play e3, getting my knight to e7 and to f5. I believe this plan might be a bit slow. The engine didn't really... It was equal, but the engine recommended better moves here. But bishop takes c4, knight to e7, h4, which is a bad move because it allows f5 to be played here. So knight to f5, a good move. You're supposed to play f4 because this pawn is being double attacked, but he does not play f4. Instead, he goes for the plan to push d5 here. So he goes queen to d2, completely ignoring that he blunders a pawn here, that a pawn was hanging. Knight takes h4, knight takes a4, h4, queen takes h4 with a pin here, so he can't push d5. Here he was supposed to play g3 and then h5 here, putting more defense to the d5 square because a bunch of pieces are preparing d5 push. And instead, he forgets that his bishop was pinned to the d4 pawn. He plays d5 here, blundering his bishop. Queen takes c4, d takes e6. I play bishop takes e6, activating my bishop here. And he resigns. So yeah, if you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. And have a nice day, and peace out.